Good morning, Eastlake. We're glad to see you again this morning. We're going to sing some great songs this morning that'll lift your spirits. And so we're going to start off with Sing to the King. It's one of my favorites. So you can stand with us or sit in your seat, but be prepared to sing with us in congregational singing this morning.
Sing to the King who is coming to reign. Glory to Jesus, the Lamb that was slain. Life and salvation his empire shall bring. And joy to the nations when Jesus is King. Come, let us sing a song declaring we belong to Jesus. He is all we need. Lift up a heart of praise. Sing now with voices raised to Jesus. Sing to the King. For his returning, we watch and we pray, and we will be ready the dawn of that day. We'll join in singing with all the redeemed. Satan is vanquished and Jesus is King. Let us sing a song declaring we belong to Jesus. He is all we need. Lift up a heart of praise. Sing now with voices raised to Jesus. Sing to the King. Come, let us sing a song declaring we belong to Jesus. He is all we need. And lift up a heart of praise. Sing now with voices raised to Jesus. Sing to the King. Lift up a heart of praise. Sing now with voices raised to Jesus. Sing to the King.
Our next song is Mighty to Save. Sing along with us.
Everyone needs compassion, a love that's never failing. Let mercy fall on me. Everyone needs forgiveness, the kindness of a Savior, the hope of nations. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation, hero conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. So take me as you find me, all my fears and failures. Fill my life again. I give my life to follow everything I believe in. Now I surrender. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation, He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation, He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save forever. Author of salvation, He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. My Jesus, shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King.
All right, our next song is going to be fun for you at home because there's a split part on it. We're going to sing I Will Call Upon the Lord. So Kenny and I will sing the first part, and Carrie will echo it. So if you're at home, you got to figure if you're going to sing both parts or just one, I guess. And if there's a group of you, pair off. We're going to have a little fun with this song. It's a great one. All right, here we go.
I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. I will call upon the Lord. Sing it again. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. I will call upon the Lord. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted.
We're going to sing that verse and that chorus one last time. If you didn't get the first time, sing along with us this time.
I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be safe from my enemies. I will call upon the Lord. Here we go. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted.
All right, we're going to power in the blood. So we hope you enjoyed worshiping with us this morning and singing congregationally, even across the internet, the digital world. So we miss you, and we miss hearing your voices. But it's good to know that we can still be together this way. So sing along with us. There is power in the blood.
Would you be free from the burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you or evil a victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood, of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be free from? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be whiter, much whiter than snow? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Sin stains are lost in its life-giving flow. There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you do service for Jesus, your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily his praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb.
All right, now hold on. Sometimes when we're in church, we get excited about a song like that, and we want to sing a little more. So I feel like singing that one a little bit more. So we're going to go back, and we're going to do that last verse one more time, and then we're going to sing the chorus. And we might even sing that chorus in a cappella time at the end and just drag it out a little bit this morning since we don't have all these people with us, because this is an awesome song. So let's do it. Ready?
Would you do service for Jesus, your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily his praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Let's sing with just our voices. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb.
Blessings to you. Hope to see you soon. Good morning, Eastlake.
Right? I don't know what week we're on, week 4, 5, 6, whatever of this now. And we don't know how long this is going to go. So we're thinking about it. I'm kind of watching the government regulations to see what's going on because people are wondering. Right now, obviously, we're going to keep doing this until the end of April, until the beginning of May, and then we'll look at it. And then I'll try to make very clear announcements on the internet about what exactly we're going to do after that. If we go back full throttle again, or if we need to ease in, or just what we're going to do. So I know everyone's kind of wondering right now. We have no information. We're just like everybody else. We're watching the news, trying to live under the government regulations the best that we can, and keeping our people safe, and also continuing on with our lives. So trying to strike that balance there. So that's what's going on. But I watch what's going on around us and in our church, and I'm really encouraged by it because I see the church hasn't stopped, and we've talked about this a lot. Even though we're not coming down here, most of you would be sitting in this room here on most Sunday mornings right now, but even though we're not coming down here right now, our church ministry is still continuing on. I'm seeing classes that are still meeting, videos being sent. Our youth group has been meeting most Sunday and Wednesday nights online, doing some things. And matter of fact, last night, if you have kids in our youth group, you probably know that our youth leaders went around and visited, social distance, visited a lot of the houses and gave gifts to the kids. So the ministry is still going on. And I know we're trying to keep in contact with people. If there's something that you need and you're a part of our church, and for some reason we don't know about it, you have a need for something, please let us know. Don't hesitate to call the church or to contact your deacon or me or post it on one of our sites or something. Let us know if there's anything you need. We don't want anyone to fall through the cracks at this time. Our ministry continues also. A quick word about a renovation because people are interested in it. Hopefully this week, I believe maybe even tomorrow, we're going to have some finalized plans for phase 1 of our renovation in the middle of the building. And so things aren't stopping. We're still continuing to move along. So before we get into our message today, let's have a word of prayer, and we're going to talk about a real bargain today, all right? Father, thank you today that you've given us this opportunity to be alive. We thank you for the safety that you have given to us. We thank you for the health that we have. And if there's anyone watching this today, this stream, or watching the video later who is sick, I ask that you just give them healing that they need and give them strength and give them comfort. And if they have family members that are sick, especially with this virus that everyone's talking about now, Lord, I just ask you to calm them. And we ask that all this would end soon so we can get our lives back. And we just ask today as we try to focus on something other than this virus and something that affects us every day of our lives. Help us to be able to learn what we need to learn today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, we're going to go to the book of Matthew today, Matthew chapter 16. So if you want to find in your Bible there, Matthew 16. And if you haven't already downloaded our sermon notes for today, they are on our website. Go to the Sermons tab and click on where it says your sermon notes. You can download them. If you do it right, you can actually fill them out on your device or print them out or whatever you need to do there. You can follow along with us. So I didn't want to talk so much about COVID-19 today because everybody's talking about it, right? Every time you turn on the news, people are talking about it. And I preached many sermons sitting right here just with you guys and the camera and two guys walking through the mall. And we came to one of these cookie stores. You know how they have them in the mall? They'll have a whole store set up with these cookies that you just can't walk by without getting one. And so we walked up and we saw one of these big blondie cookies. You know what I'm talking about? And it was just like calling our names. You've been there, right? It's just calling your name. And you have to stop by. And you have to get this cookie. So we went up to this booth. And we said we want one of these big blondie cookies. And as I was getting my money ready, I saw they had a sign there. And the sign said that you cannot use your credit card for a purchase under $3. And so I'm digging around for cash because obviously this cookie, a cookie for under $3, it's got to be, right? So I'm digging around, and when she rang it up, it was $5.99. $6 for a cookie. I didn't know they made a cookie worth $6, but hey, it's your anniversary, right? So you're going to buy the big cookie. To me, $6 seems like a lot of money for a cookie. But we paid it anyway for the anniversary. But for some things, $6 is nothing. If I was going to go and buy a car, for $6, that's nothing, right? It's relative. The cost we're willing to pay for something is relative to the value of what it is that we're trying to purchase. Every once in a while, one of the kids will say something like, is $1,000 a lot of money? And the answer is, well, it depends. I mean, if I was going to pay $1,000 for an outfit, that's not going to happen. That's way too expensive. But to buy a car or a house for $1,000, then it's not a lot of money. So it's relative. We're always looking for this bargain, right? Businesses, if you're in business, you probably understand what they call a cost-benefit analysis. A cost-benefit analysis helps to determine the cost of something versus its benefit. Am I willing to put this cost into it for the benefit that I will get out of it? And so you have to kind of balance that out. And we do this all the time in our life. We might not even think about it, but we're constantly balancing out the cost of something versus the value I'm going to get from it. Do I want to put that cost in it? Here's some examples. We buy gas. Why do we buy gas? Why do we pay? Well, gas is relatively cheap right now, but why do we put that money into gas? It's because the value of the freedom to be able to drive around, and of course, maybe not so much today, but generally in life, when you put gas in a car, you actually have the freedom to go somewhere, right? The value, the cost of putting that money into gas for my car is well equal to the freedom that I will have by being able to drive around. So we're constantly balancing this out. When you get the electric bill in the mail, you say, well, I don't want to pay this, it's expensive. But it's worth it to you because you like to turn on your lights and you like to run your refrigerator and you like to run your computers, and so it's worth it to us, right? When you're taking a test, you put the energy and work into studying it. That's a cost because you want the value of passing the test. Today, people, if you want to go to like a Lowe's or Walmart or something, you might have to stand in line outside. We drove by Sam's. We went and got, the good old cheap gas at Sam's, and we drove around the corner there, and the line at Sam's Club was all out front and all the way down the side of the building. And I guess the weather was nice. People just wanted to get out, but I thought, is there anything in Sam's that's worth standing outside for possibly hours on end waiting for? Well, obviously those people thought so, even if it was just actually being out and around people, right? But, we balance everything. Is it worth doing this cost, to get the kind of benefit? Well, Jesus' disciples were asking the same question. Because here they were for 3 years. They're following Jesus around and learning from him. And they're saying, this is the cost because I'm giving up my career. I'm following this guy, being a little bit persecuted by people. But he keeps talking about this kingdom. He keeps talking about how one day we are going to be able to have this kingdom, and Jesus is going to set this up, and we're going to join in with this, and we're going to be able to be like one, maybe second and third in the kingdom, and this is going to be so awesome. And so they're thinking about all this, so they're actually doing this cost-benefit analysis. Hey, if I follow Jesus and I give up a few years of my life now, I'm going to be able to take part in his kingdom. But then Jesus started saying some things that were really kind of strange. He started talking about dying. Of course, last week being Easter, we talked about Jesus' death and his resurrection. But he started talking about dying, and this didn't resonate with them because this isn't what I'm signing up for. I mean, I'm putting this cost of my life into following you because I want something here. I want something from you. But let's start reading this. He says in Matthew chapter 16 and verse 21, from that time, Jesus began to show to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed and be raised the third day. Now, they totally missed that raised the third day part, okay? It's like, they didn't stop and think about that. Remember last week we talked about that where you just didn't expect that. He said, raised the third day. Maybe I misheard him, right? Because they're not expecting this. But they're focusing in on this being killed. No, wait a minute, Jesus. We're following you because you're going to set up this kingdom. And we're going to follow you, and we're going to be in this kingdom with you. But now you're talking about death. I mean, this is not what's supposed to happen. What Jesus is saying is, look, if you're going to follow me, there's going to be a cost involved in this thing. It's not going to be all pretty all the time because I have death in my future. And there's so much more that the disciples didn't know until later. But this brings us to our first point we're going to talk about, is that following Jesus has a great cost. If you're going to follow Jesus, there is a great cost. But before we get into this any further, we have to define what it means to follow Jesus. Okay, because we can say, well, I mean, what is following Jesus? Does it mean like on Facebook, I click follow and I'm following him, and so maybe I read a little Bible, I go to church every once in a while, kind of zoom into the church service and go back off. What is it? Is that following Jesus, or what is it? Let me just try to describe it this way. We could talk about so many examples and details of what it means actually to follow Jesus, but I think ultimately it comes down to this: following Jesus is obeying his commands rather than our own desires. And you can see how that fits into so many areas in our life. It's following Jesus, obeying his commands rather than our own desires. Staying away from things, even though they're very tempting, they look very fun, they look very tantalizing to us, and doing what's right even when it's difficult. Because doing what's right can be difficult, but I'm going to lay aside what I want, and I'm going to do the things that are right. So there's this cost in following Jesus. And the disciples are like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not sure that's what we signed up for. You're talking about a kingdom, that's what we want. And sometimes when we come to God, come to Jesus, we're thinking, oh man, heaven. Because a lot of times that's what our evangelism is about, right? Hey, you don't want to go to hell, do you? No. You want to go to heaven? Yeah. Well, say this prayer after me, or however it works, right? And that's not what salvation is. A true salvation, when you come into it, you understand what you're doing. I'm following Jesus. It might cost me. It might cost me something great, but it's okay. But what we want to do sometimes is focus just on the good things. We want to focus, leave off the part about hell, leave off the part about punishment, leave off the part, even about Jesus dying, as being our the atonement and the sacrifice for our sins. We don't like to talk about that. We like to talk about the love of God. Let's only talk about the love of God, which is a good part of it. We should talk about the love of God, but it goes so much further than the love of God. When I was a teenager, my sister and I would go out and teach 5-day clubs with, some of you might be familiar with Child Evangelism Fellowship, or CEF. We would go and we teach 5-day clubs. We'd go and we'd stay a whole week at someone's house, and we each had our own set of clubs, and we did about 4 or 5 a day, and we go every day of the week to the same houses and do these. And we went to this one particular place, and we were doing them through this church, and a couple days into this, the people, this one lady contacted us and contacted our supervisor and said that, I don't like what these kids are teaching, because they're not just talking about the love of God. They're actually talking about punishment. They're actually bringing up the idea of hell, and we should just only be about the love of God. And of course, that kind of was a big thing, and our supervisor said, we're not only about the love of God, we're also about the justice of God. And obviously, she defended us in that way. But that's unfortunately what we are many times. Let's just only talk about the love of God, like we have a big slobbery being in the universe that all he cares about is us being happy. But that's not what the love of God is. He is love, but he also is a God of justice. We want the good stuff, right? As I look back here today, there's 3 of us in the building. Chris here, obviously, the extraordinary man on the controls back there, and my son Austin back there helping him out. As I look at Austin, I think about when he was a little kid. I can embarrass him because it's just 3 of us in here, right? Nobody else is probably going to hear this, are they? But here's Austin. He's in the high chair, okay, just a little guy. And we're graduating to solid foods. And we're trying to get him to eat these little pieces of meat, little sausage or something. He didn't want them. He didn't like the meat. But he liked the cheese. We'd cut them up into little cubes. We'd have the meat and the cheese, okay? And I see your comment there, Austin. You've been called out, right? And so he would eat all the cheese and he wouldn't eat the meat. And so what we got really smart, and parents, of course, are really smart, we started stacking up. We put the piece of cheese on top of the meat, and so he wouldn't see it. So he grabbed the cheese, and not knowing it, he would grab the meat. He would eat it too. Well, until he got smart, and he would take the cheese off, or just eat the cheese and not the meat too. But that's how we are as people. We want the good stuff, right? We don't want the stuff that's good for us. We want the fun stuff. We want to have a good time, and we don't want the cost, right? Don't talk to me about the cost. So look at verse 22. He said, then Peter took him aside. Oh, Jesus, you can't do that, Jesus. We're not talking about a cost. We're not talking about death here. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, far be it from you, Lord, this shall not happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, verse 23, get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men. Now, I think that's pretty serious. He looks at Peter and he says, get behind me, Satan. Now, obviously, Peter wasn't Satan. He wasn't indwelled by Satan. We didn't see that. But I think what he's saying here is that's the spirit of Satan. Peter, when you're starting to want to follow me and you don't want the cost, all you want is the fun stuff, that's the spirit of Satan. That's what's going to drive people away. That's what the devil wants us to think. It's all about the good times, and there's no cost there. But Jesus said, look, there is a cost for following me. Other times we see it said that there is you're supposed to pick up your cross. Matter of fact, there in verse 24, Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Wait a minute. Take up your cross and follow me? That's not what we want, right? And when we think of a cross, what do we think of? Sometimes we think, man, I'm going to be a Christian. I have to get up early on Sunday morning, go to church, man. What a cross to bear. Or I have to put up with, some renegade church members. I have to go to church with someone I don't like. Man, what a cross that I have to bear, But that's not a cross. You know what a cross is? A cross is an instrument of execution. I mean, that's what it was like when he talked about picking up a cross. It was literally a cross, as we know if we follow through Jesus' life. It's a cross. They would execute people on the cross. He's not just talking about, it's going to be a little difficult. Your friends might think you're kind of weird. I mean, he's talking about you might have to go to death if you're going to follow me. There is a great cost that is possible there in following Jesus. So the question I think that we should have from this is, what are we willing to give up? Now, in America, generally, we don't have to give up as much as people in some other countries. But what are we willing to give up to be a follower of Jesus? Being a follower of Jesus is not just the promise of an eternal kingdom. It's not just about heaven. That's a side effect. That's not the point. The whole point, ultimately, is the glory of God. But it's not just about us having a good time, having God where he wants to be in fellowship with us. And it's not about us. That's the thing. We think of salvation as about me, but God thinks of it as about him. It's about him getting glory because people are coming to worship him. So we understand that. We say, okay, so maybe there's a cost. But you know what? The cost is okay, whatever it happens to be. The cost is okay. I see it as a bargain. Look at verse 25, verse A. Verse 25, just the beginning part, A. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it. Now, wait a minute here. This is not good evangelism tactics, right? Evangelism tactics should be, come to Jesus and everything's going to be peachy. Everything's going to be wonderful. I mean, you come to Jesus and he'll heal you from all your diseases. He'll fill your pockets with all kinds of money. And you don't even have to give it to the church if you don't want to, right? And all this stuff. Jesus says, look, if you want to be a real follower of me, give up your life. If you want to really follow me, be willing to give up your life. Now, there are some rich people who are true believers. There are poor people who are true believers. There are people with good health that are believers and bad health that are believers. That's not the point. He's not saying you become a believer and you're instantly a pauper, right? You push the pauper button and there we are. That's not what he's saying. He's saying when you come to follow me, if you're going to be a real follower of me, you got to be willing to give up anything that I ask. Oh, you're not really following me. You're just trying to get on the bandwagon for a while as I'm passing out the benefits. It's like people, with government. I'll take the government that'll give me the most. Well, I'll take the religion that'll give me the most. I've gone to the Baptist church when they're talking about heaven. When they start talking about God's justice, then I think I'll go somewhere else because I don't like that. Jesus says, if you want to be a real follower of me, you might have to give up your life. It might be literal. It might be your physical life. It might be something that you really enjoy. There is a cost if you want to be a real follower of Jesus. So here it is. The cost of following Jesus is your life. Again, that doesn't mean you become a believer instantly, you're going to die on a cross somewhere. That's not what he's saying. But you're giving it up to him. Say, well, I thought salvation was faith, not about some kind of works of giving up. No, but if you have real faith and you really believe who Jesus is, when you come to him in faith, you are understanding that it is all about him. And I want to be his follower. It's not following him that makes you saved, but being saved makes you want to follow him. And if you don't care to follow him, then I question whether there is any salvation there at all, really. Because there's no heart change there. There's no real faith and trust. It's just, hey, if this is my free ticket to heaven, I'll punch my ticket and be good, right? That's not what salvation is. So the cost of following Jesus is your life. Say, man, at this point, wow, this is not all that exciting, right? Because, man, I want the good stuff. I tuned in during a pandemic. I turned into church because I want to be encouraged, because I want the fun stuff. Well, that's coming next. But we have to understand that there is a cost to following Jesus. Now, Jesus does it a little differently than most salesmen. Most salesmen, if they're trying to sell you something, they will come to you and they'll try to give you all the benefits. And then, oh, by the way, yeah, there's a cost. You're going to have to pay something for it. Here's this wonderful car out there, and here's this, and it's beautiful. It's the perfect car. I mean, it's great for you, and oh, yeah, you're going to have to pay for it. But, man, this is the car you need, right? Or this is the house that you need, or this is the whatever it is that you need. It's on the commercials, right? They show you all the wonderful stuff and not usually the price. Well, Jesus starts the opposite way. He says, you know what? If you're going to follow me, there's going to be a cost. You willing to do it? You willing to give your life up for me? Once you make that decision, then he goes on, okay, oh, by the way, if you do that, there are some benefits here for you. Okay? We don't come to him for the benefits. We come to him saying, I know who you are. I understand who you are. I have faith. I trust in you. And I know this is going to be hard. It's okay. And then he says, okay, now that you have that frame of mind, let me tell you about the good part. Because following Jesus isn't only about, oh, man, I got to give everything up, right? That's you follow him with that attitude, but then he says, look, I've got some benefits also that it's going to help you to know about, because it's going to help you in those difficult times. When you're giving up things to be a true follower of Jesus, doing what he wants instead of what you want, there's going to be some difficulty, but you can keep going knowing that there are some good things that he is going to give you. So following Jesus has great benefits, okay? Following Jesus has great costs, but it also has great benefits. So we started reading in verse 25, the beginning part. I want to pick up there because the end of the verse is very important. He says, for whoever desires to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. It's kind of you say, well, is that backwards? Is it inside out? What's going on here? Okay, you desire to save your life. You just want to live your life your own way. You're going to lose it that way. Because in the end, that's not going to matter anything. But if you're willing to lose your life for my sake, then you will find it. Verse 26, for what profit is to a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he will reward each according to his works. So if you try to gain your life, you're going to lose it. If all you want to live for is things here on this earth, in this life, you're going to lose it. So we saw just above that the cost of following Jesus is your life, but guess what? The benefit of following Jesus is also your life. See, it goes both ways. The cost of following Jesus, you're giving in, say, okay, my life is yours, I'll do whatever you want. Even if you command me to do something that I don't want to do, I'm okay with that. That's the cost, my life. But he says, you know what? In return, guess what I'm going to give you? In return, I'm going to give you your life. An abundant life, a great life. It's going to be full of value while you're here on this earth, and for eternity, it's going to be completely blessed. So you're willing to give it all up now, but as you're willing to give it up, he gives you so much more. Now, you don't come to him and follow him because you want the so much more. Rewards are a good thing. He tells us about them. We should keep them in mind. But the ultimate point is, I just believe who he is, and I just want to follow him. And then he says, if you're willing to do it like that, I've got some rewards for you. I got some great rewards for you. So in the end, is there really a cost? Because to follow him, you give up your life. But then he gives you your life back in a very beneficial way. I want to illustrate this with a hypothetical situation to help us understand. Let's just say that you're 20 years old, and you're trying to find your way in life a little bit, so you go to work for this man, a very, very wealthy man. And this man has more money than you could ever dream of having. He has businesses, and you go to work for him at some low-level job. You're sweeping the floor, taking out the trash, whatever. And he comes to you one day, you're 20 years old, and he says, okay, I'm going to give you a couple options here. Kind of like you seem like a good worker. I'm going to give you a couple options. I don't have any family, and I'm a rich man, not going to be around forever. Here's option number one. You work for me for 20 years. Commit to me for 20 years, and I'll give you a good salary. You'll have a nice car. You will have, you can have a decent house. You can have some extra things. You're not going to be filthy rich, but after 20 years, you're doing okay, all right? I'll take good care of you for 20 years, but after 20 years, it's over. You'll leave my employment. You won't have any marketable skills, but you enjoyed those 20 years of your life. That's option one. Or he says, let's go with option 2. Option 2 is you commit to work for me for 20 years. And you do whatever I ask you to do. And I'll pay you, but I'll give you just enough to keep you afloat. You'll be able to rent a little apartment somewhere, drive an older car, maybe go out to eat every once in a while, and that's it. But after 20 years, I will give you everything I own. My businesses will all be yours. My money will all be yours. My cars, everything will all be yours. Which option would you choose? Now, I know what you're thinking. All you old people out there, people my age and above, all you old people are seeing it differently than the young people, because the young people are saying, 20 years, man, that's a long time. 20 years, man, I want it now, right? And the older people are saying, man, those 20 years, they went so fast. Matter of fact, today, April 19th, is the first day that we have had no children under the age of 10 in 20 years in our house. Well, 19 years and 11 months or so, okay? For 20 years, because today's Braden's birthday. He turns 10 today. And I look back on those 20 years from when the oldest to the youngest, when Austin was born, down to Braden turning 10. And I say, where'd those 20 years go? Man, they went so quick. So from my perspective, I look back and I say, wow, that's not very long. But which option are you going to choose? Option number 1, where you work for this man, he gives you a good salary, you enjoy 20 years, and then you have nothing? Or where you work hard for 20 years, and then you say, or then he gives you everything, and you can retire at 40, and you haven't made, and you have the rest of your life. What would you do? It all depends on how you view life. Is life about having a good time now? Or is life about something in the future? And I think the point here is that if we were wise, we would say, you know what, I'll put up with something more difficult for 20 short years. I'll put up with something difficult because I want something in the future. That's forward thinking. I think that's what Jesus is telling his disciples. Look, you might have to give up some stuff now. His disciples and then us by extension. You might have to give up something now. You might have to follow me, and you might even have to give your physical life for me. But you know what? Look at what comes later. Look at the value. Man, this is a bargain. To give up your life now for what kind of rewards I can give you throughout eternity, that is nothing. So I think he's telling us, be forward thinking. Don't just think about having a good time now, but think about the future. I want to give you this quote. This is from Dallas Willard in his book, Renovation of the Heart. And then if I quote someone, doesn't mean I agree with everything they say, okay? I just thought this was a good quote. The impression gained by most who hear about counting the cost of following Jesus is one of how terrible and painful that cost is. But to count the cost is to take into consideration both the losses and the gains of all possible courses of action to see which is the most beneficial. So counting the cost is looking at this. We're gonna look at Jesus and we're gonna say, following him, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And am I gonna enjoy this or what? We say, I'm gonna balance it out with with what he's going to give me. Okay, maybe I have to give up many things in my life now. Maybe I even might die for his sake. Maybe I will even be a martyr. But you know what? The rewards he'll give me forever are so worth it. It's a great bargain. And so I'm going to do that, okay? It's balancing it out. What is worthwhile? Jesus gave an example with a similar lesson. This is Matthew chapter 13, verse 44. He says, again, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid, and for joy over it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. So it's like this guy walking out in the field, and he kicks this rock, and there's like a buried treasure. The pirates, have buried treasure under this rock. And he looks around, and nobody saw him, so he puts the rock back over it, and he goes to whoever owns the field. Now, I don't know if this would be moral, if we should do it or not. But it's an example, okay? I'm not saying go out and do this. But he says, look, I will give all kinds of money for that field. I will pay this guy double what that field is worth, because he knows that hidden in that field is a treasure that's more valuable than the money he's going to put into it. And that's what Jesus is saying about following him. You follow me, and you know what? There is nothing that you can pay. There's no cost that you can give, even if it's your life, that is any way equal to the value of following me. That's why it's a great bargain. Even those who give their lives and die, it's a good deal for them because they're reaping something so much better, rewards that God is going to give them through eternity. One of the things that we like to do, if we can as a family, we like to watch Shark Tank. Any of you like to watch Shark Tank? It's interesting because you get these people in there, and they have, if you've never seen it, these are entrepreneurs. They've come up with this idea for a business, and they're going to try to pitch it to these, wealthy people. And sometimes it amazes me. They just, they'll throw $200,000 investment into something or $500,000 investment into something. And I think, first of all, what would it be like just to have that kind of money, just to be able to say, I'll take a risk with $250,000. That's just, it really is beyond me. But they're not seeing it as a cost. They're not saying, I'm spending $200,000 or $250,000 or $500,000. They're saying, you know what, I see something in this business. I see something in this entrepreneur where my $200,000 will turn into $500,000 or will turn into $1 million or $2 million or $3 million or $10 million. They're seeing a value there. So they're not seeing it as a cost. They're seeing it as an investment. And that's exactly what our service to God is. It's an investment rather than a cost. It's an investment rather than a cost. So don't think of following Jesus as, I got to give up all this stuff. There's this great cost. It's an investment because as you're doing what he wants you to do, you're investing in the future. You're not buying your salvation, but you're investing in rewards that God is going to give you, and it's worth it. There have been times in my life where I've walked away from a store and I thought, maybe I got taken. Maybe I paid more for something than I should have, because this thing that I bought, man, I don't know if it really has the value that I put into it, right? But I've never felt that way walking away from a bank. Because when I put money in the bank, well, considering there's somewhat of a, of an interest payment going on, which isn't so much anymore, but I'm putting it in knowing I can get it back and possibly more. If I invested in something, get more. Like buying a house, you buy a house. And you say one day, unless something really goes wrong, I'm going to be able to get more out of the house than I put into it. It's an investment. When we follow Christ, we're thinking, there's a cost sometime. What if somebody makes fun of me? What if I have to give my life? What if I'm a martyr? What if they ask me to serve in the church somewhere with those kids and I don't want to do that or something? What if there's a cost? But when you really think about it, there's no cost that you can pay that can't equal to the value of the benefits that God can give to you. So is there really a cost when it comes to serving God? Okay, sure, there's some things you might have to give up, right? You might have to give up your own way of doing things. But is that always bad? I mean, the things that we give up, our own way, man, sometimes our own way is really dumb. Sometimes we just have to give those up. Sometimes we have to give up pleasures that we have for a while. Sometimes we have to give up some opportunities, some friendships, some freedom that we have. But what do we get in return? What we get in return is the opportunity to fulfill our purpose. We get the opportunity to get rewards from God for eternity. I want to read again verse 27. He says, "For the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he will reward each according to his works." This is not salvation, not you'll become saved if you do enough things, but everyone's going to stand there before God, and he is going to give rewards according to their works. And so when we stand there, is there anything we're going to be able to say, stand before God and say, I gave up this thing to serve God, and man, I wish I wouldn't have, because it's so much more worth it to have more fun on earth than to get a reward from God. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to say, I wish I would have given up more. I wish I just would have paid more into it because I see now the value of serving God. Another quote from Dallas Willard in Renovation of the Heart. He said, self-denial, I have that for you, self-denial is always the surrender of a lesser dying self for a greater eternal one, the person God intended in creating you. So as we give up things about ourselves, things that we might like here on this earth, we are exchanging it for something better. We are exchanging it to be the kind of person that God made us to be. The kind of person that God made us to be is the kind of person who brings honor and glory to him in everything that we do. Sometimes there might be a literal cross to carry. Now, today, we don't execute people on crosses, not in this country anyway. But it could be giving your life. It could be giving up something that you want to do. It could be simply saying, I am not going to do that sin because God doesn't want me to do it. Even if I want so much to do it myself, I will not do it. I'll give up my own way here to serve God. Those are the kind of things that get rewards. Those are the kind of things you're going to look back and say, man, that was a great bargain to do it God's way instead of my way. Most people know of Nathan Hale. Nathan Hale, one of the, I call him a father of our country in a way. He was executed, as you know, for spying in 1776. And he is said to have announced, and I don't know if historical documents are, if there's history involved there or just legend, but this is what everybody knows that Nathan Hale said. He said, I only regret that I have but one life to give for my country. He says, you know what, I can give up my life for my country, but you know what? I wish I had 2 lives to give up for my country. I wish I had 3 to give up for my country because it is so worth it because I love my country. Well, even if we gave up our lives for God, even if we just, okay, you can have my life and I might be martyred, I might be killed for it. Could we be like Nathan Hale and say, man, I wish I could do that 2 times. I wish I could do that 3 times. It's so worth it. But sometimes we give our attitude away when we're not willing to do the smallest things for God. When we say, okay, I know God doesn't want me to do this particular sin, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's like saying, I'm not even going to give up a little part of my life for God. There's no way we could then say, oh, I'd die for him. Oftentimes, someone might say, hey, oh, I would die for my faith. But then go out and knowingly sin. Well, if you won't give up one little desire of yours, would you actually be willing to give up your whole life for him? I think sometimes maybe we're fooling ourselves. I wonder how many people are going to stand before God one day and see his splendor and his majesty, stand before God and stand before Jesus and say, I wish I would have given up more. Because when I say given up, we're not really giving anything up. We're investing it. I don't think anyone's going to stand before God one day and say, I really wish I would have done it my own way. I really wish I would not have been so faithful. I don't think that's going to happen. I think people are going to say, I wish I would have given more. So that's what I want you to think about today. Anything that you can, quote, give up for God, you will not regret it. So think about it in your life today. What is it that God might be asking you to just let go of and just to give up? Some things might come to your mind right now. Would you be willing to die for him? Not if you're not willing to give up those little things for him. So that's my encouragement. What would you be willing to give up for God today? It's a great bargain. It will be so worth it. You'll never regret it. Let's pray. Father, thank you today for the opportunity again to meet even like this. And Lord, I ask that we would be willing to give up anything in our lives that we need to. That even our lives themselves are our own passions, our own desires and opportunities, maybe some friendships that need to go, whatever it is, just because that's what you want us to do, because we want to be true followers of you. We want to do things the way that you would have us to do them. Bless our people, if you would, as they're out there today. Wherever they are, keep them safe. In Jesus' name, amen.